When did you start with the lake? What's your introduction to Lake Carmichael?
Well, I probably was about 4. My father was the minister up at the Congregational Church, and we would come down to the beach. And we loved the water.
Sure.
And so when it came time for my father to need to move, we were very sad to leave Brentwood. And Dorothea Patton said,
Yes.
I have a little piece of land that is very swampy. Folks came to settle on it, and they took all the things and left. You can have that for $10 a year on a 99-year lease. And you can, if you pay me for it, Christmas, it's $5 a year. Well, we thought that was great. And my father had a friend down in Bakersfield, another minister, and he fixed a little construction shack for his wife. Didn't like to spend so much time in the parsonage when there was people coming and going. They would want to leave Bakersfield, and here was this little shack. So Artie Gates and Dr. Sampson agreed to go down and get the shack, put it on the truck, and bring it up. And this started in 1937. And I've been coming to this wonderful lake ever since.
So as I look at this building behind you, Ruth, is it the left-hand side that's 1937, or is it the right?
It's the left-hand side.
Mm-hmm. And when you come to camp, what does that mean?
I'm back home. You see, I moved 15 times. My father died when I was 10. My mother was a school teacher, no tenure in Vermont. So I moved 15 times before I was married. I went to UVM, and that was great. But then I met this young man, and we got married, and then we moved 15 more times. He also decided to be a teacher, and no tenure in Vermont. We ended up in New York State. I was very embarrassed, but it was good. I had 6 kids in 9 years. That's what the UVM professor said. He said, it's up to each of you freshmen to ease the brain drain from the war. You should all have big families. And most of us went right out and did it. So, with 6 kids in 9 years, we're pretty busy.
When you went to UVM, how many women were on campus compared to the men?
I'd say at least, well, of course. I was looking at it differently. I felt we took over. No, we had to walk up the road to Rainville to have our visit and so forth. Probably, I would say, at least half as many women as men.
There we go. So you were in the midst of a changing world, and before we rolled tape, you told me about walking down to the little grocery store here to get a loaf of bread.
Yes. I walked down there, just down the road, and the grocery store was on the left-hand side by the lake, right at the end of, almost at the end of the Lakes crossing here. And they had just heard on the radio that England had declared war on Germany. Wow. And I came back to tell my folks that this was amazing. And to be able to be coming back and having worked there at the bowling alley, roller skating and doing all of that exciting part, that was occurring after the war. And then we had the wonderful dances over here on the corner. Oh, those were great. Opening up the windows and bands, and we all had a wonderful time there. Growing up here in the lake in the summer was fantastic. And so different. Because every camp was filled with kids. And they were all going up and down the lake, swimming, canoeing. Not many motorboats, just having a good time. But if you could only imagine what it was like there at the bowling alley, it was packed. The boats were all across the front, lined up. Cars everywhere, and now I drive by and it's so empty.
So paint a picture for me of what a summer at Lake Carmi was in the 30s and 40s. You're talking almost about this fraternity of children. What were the things that you did? Where did you go? What did you enjoy?
Actually, those of us on the plains known as Brooks Crossing, we would have a wonderful time. We'd all gather in the evening after supper and you'd play kick the can or you'd play other games. And it was so much fun. We always end up being around a campfire, cooking marshmallows. During the day, everyone was out swimming, playing together. It was terrific. It was a wonderful group.
Nice. I don't have a lot of memory of the bowling alley, and I know many people don't. Could you kind of tell us what it looked like as you approached the building and went through the door? What would we have seen?
Oh, well, actually, as you would come up, there would be the front area that would be fairly a long open area with windows. And then to the right-hand side of it would be a larger building, which would have the bowling alley. And you would step in, to the right would be the bowling alley, and it would be exciting adventures and people ready to sit down and bowl a few runs. And on the left, you would have the lunch area, people sitting at little booths, eating. And then if you went straight back, you would have the lovely roller skating area. And it was so much fun. You'd be standing there, handing out the skates to kids, and they would be having problems getting them on. You go out and help them get their skates on, and they'd skate around to the music.
What was playing? What was the music?
Probably Glenn Miller.
I wondered in those wartime years.
Harry James and the trumpet.
So maybe we've got Moonlight Serenade, maybe we've got String of Pearls, we've got a group roller skating. Are we talking one lane in the bowling alley? Are we talking 2 lanes?
I think there were 2 lanes.
Okay.
It's hard to remember some of these things.
Of course.
It was so much fun just to think about it.
And were groceries sold there as well? Could you go over there and get some food for your camp?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, that was strictly food such as hot dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Little cafe.
By the time we got to this point, there was no little store. That had gone during the war.
Okay.
And so you'd have to go up to Franklin. Now, the Franklin store really hasn't changed for me as I think of it when I was 4 years old walking down to the store to get something and standing at the door. And it wasn't very tall. and I have to wait for somebody to come in or out of the door. And so my folks would sometimes wonder why it took so long. Nobody was there to open the door for me.
Is this the Riley store that was over the brook?
Of course, it's the Riley store. I wouldn't ever think going anywhere else. And I still think of it as the Riley store. And now, sometimes I'm there with the cane, and I think maybe I still need somebody to open the door.
What are your memories of Oscar Riley and the
Oh,
team that ran the store?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So much fun. And then the Riley girls. To me, they're the girls.
Shirley and Marilyn. So again, I don't remember the store before the fire, when it had the apartment on top, when it looked like the classic general store. So if someone opened that door for you as a child and you walked through, what did that space look like?
Goodness sakes. I would need to ask you. It's changed. To me, it's just walking in. That's where you pay your money. I go down, get the meat, whatever. I love the store. I can't imagine it's changed.
We're lucky to have it, because a lot of Vermont general stores, when the supermarkets came in the 50s, and when automobiles became more reliable, we were more mobile. So Carmi in 1900 had 3 or 4 little stores around the lake, because you didn't go very far. Well, Riley's became much more available, and then the supermarkets started to come in, and it changed. And music changed. You talked about the dance pavilion. Were you jitterbugging? Were you square dancing? Were you doing everything that happened?
I probably was. I didn't get over there that much because my mother was pretty strict.
Okay.
Yes. But I would go over with Sally Gates.
Ah, yes.
Yes, Sally would stop and we would go.
Okay.
Sally Gates was such a sweetheart.
Nice. So a little Sterling Weed in his orchestra, probably.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah.
So you already remember these things.
I curated the Historical Society for 20 years, so I know some pieces, and there's some missing, but you talked about opening the big windows in the pavilion.
The windows were always open out. They just opened. They didn't have
kind
to,
of like your building
like
here.
this. There was no actual glass. It just opened up.
Oh.
And it was so wonderful to feel the breeze coming through.
Okay.
And it was all just, it was one wonderful world.
So it was pretty magical to come to the lake.
Well, it was. And you know, all these wonderful friends all around the lake that you would meet only in the summer. For example, here we had Jimmy Taylor in the first camp, and then up the next camp had some dorky kid from St. Albans.
Okay.
For a few years, we threw frogs over the fence at him, and then he moved, and these Goslings came in, and they've been fantastic friends.
Good.
And then the next camp, the Jarvis. Now Penny Kennison didn't get to her camp for quite a while.
Okay.
She inherited it. But Patty and I were friends down at Mrs. Boyd before I even had a camp.
Nice.
We were probably 3 and 4 at that time.
Okay.
They go on down, and we discovered the Gray camp down Susan Fresh.
Okay.
They had come, a few years before this camp was established. 3 kids, we had a wonderful time playing together. Oh, and I was going to say, Bob Everett his parents rented the Jarvis camp.
Yep.
So we were close friends. He was in Pennsylvania, would write letters to me.
Yep.
As kids do, and if there's 5th, 6th, 7th grade age. We were all close.
Nice. Nice. What's changed about being at Lake Carmi over the years?
The biggest change is most of my friends have died. You know, Sally and Carol and Dave and Olin Sampson. Oh gosh, he and I were friends all the way through college and everything. And lo and behold, I think I had my 3rd kid unexpectedly in St. Johnsbury, and he was the resident. Well, that was fun to see Olin again. How are you doing? Olin Sampson, it was amazing. And Bob Everest was gone. This is a shock. All of the people around the lake, and the kids are not here that much anymore. So how are we going to hold the lake when we just have these new people coming with lots of money? Washing machines, dishwashers, showers, fancy boats, even fancy lawns with spraying to make sure there's enough fertilizer on the lawn to run into the lake, and cutting all the trees. Now you're getting an attitude of an old-timer.
So how do you keep a community together as things change?
How do we keep the community?
How do we keep the community together?
Well, I have to be quiet. I cannot express my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. How do you think relations are between summer people and year-rounders? Are we in better shape than we were years ago? Or are there still some challenges? Or is that something you'd rather not go down that road?
I hope that summer people will realize what this little lake means to the local people. What this little lake means to the old-timers. We would like to keep it functioning so that our children and grandchildren can enjoy it in a simple way.
How do your children and grandchildren feel about this lake?
Well, actually, my 2 sons here in Vermont, I have one son who has dedicated his life, I think, to keeping this old building functioning. He decided when he came back from New York State he would go to college at Johnson State because he liked his ski coach. Then later on, he went back to UVM and got his degree in physical therapy. He lives south of here in Fairfax. And he spent his life from the time he was in high school helping his grandparents take care of this area, helping taking care of the camps. His grandmother moved the trailer up back here. He helped her take care of that. And he comes every fall to take care of this place. And now his daughter, who graduated from UVM also, and lives in Westford, and she's over here. She comes on Tuesdays. She works for the national program down there in Warsaw. So she keeps her eye on everything. My another son lives in Hardwick. He comes over when he can get here. Kids in New York State, kids in Seattle. They all love to come here. I've got a granddaughter who grew up in Hardwick, She and her husband graduated from RIT in Rochester in photography. And she does weddings. They do weddings.
Okay.
She's coming up tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
To spend a few days here between weddings.
Good.
I try to keep the new camp for people to come and go. Whoever comes, there's a place. She wants to sleep in the bunkhouse because she wants to be able to listen to the water at night. After I had the 6 kids and my mother remarried a man who had been her principal when she started teaching. His name was Frank Stiles, a wonderful grandfather for my grandchildren, my children.
Nice.
And he built a bunkhouse place to store the kids when they came to visit before we had the new places. So the bunkhouse is a special part of it for the kids' lives. And you can feel how it all seemed to continue growing.
This feels like the Adirondack break camps where you have a series of buildings, but you also have common spaces.
Oh,
So the
yes.
kids have their space, you have the cottage, the guests are back there, but the water's out here.
And the fireplace is there. And we usually gather here around the picnic table for meals. And it's just wonderful. Of course, I have 15 grandchildren, 30 to 44, but I also have 15 great-grandchildren.
Oh, my.
So we can't really put everybody here anymore. So now we're going over near Mansfield. There's a place in Jeffersonville that has a place you can rent for a weekend.
There we go.
And we are doing a reunion every other year.
Nice.
Various people can come up to the camp and bring their little children and let them get acquainted. But it gets a little hectic.
Yeah, you would need it to stop raining to make sure everybody's dry in their tent.
That before, there were times when we would just have to put a tarp over the whole area, setting there over there, and exposed, and we'd all be sitting under the tarp in the rain. It was fun. But this is life. This is what happens when you continue to love a spot. And almost every one of my children manages to get back. And a lot of the grandchildren will figure out how they can do it one time or another. So the camp is wonderful, but Franklin is the important part for me. To go up there and stop at the telephone office and then go over to the library. I've never seen a library as marvelous as the Franklin one. And stopping down underneath and talk to the town clerk. Everybody wants to visit. And this is great.
We're lucky that we have some very strong institutions, our school, our library, our campers association, because those are things that really power a community and help keep it together. And the lake for me is marvelous because you get this amazing cross-section of people, some who are brand new and some who have much longer memories, if I may. But it creates a lot of fun. What are we forgetting to talk about?
What are we forgetting to talk about? Oh, well, maybe we are forgetting Dorothea Patton. This is a person we really need to remember.
Okay.
An amazing woman living up there in that beautiful brick home. And every time we would go up to see her, she was such a talented, beautiful lady. And she would serve tea in that lovely room with a fireplace, and you would sit there and visit. And my children have gone up, and they have these wonderful memories. Dorothea was such a unique person, and you stop and imagine what it was like for her and her ancestors to have come.
Yes. For her to have 3 uncles who had fought in the Civil War, to have started out in an orphanage herself, and to have this astounding farm where so much of it was lakeshore, and the people she interacted with. Did it, when you went up to the house, did it feel like this was the mayor, this was a business person, this was your neighbor?
This was a marvelous person who had such a gentle kindness and love for everyone she met. She was amazing, and certainly made a difference in my life. To be able to be here all these years.
I'm curious what sent you down the road of becoming a teacher.
I couldn't have thought of anything else. My mother was a teacher, and as we moved from one place to another, sometimes I was in her classes, and she was sure that the junior high was the best age to teach. So I went to the University of Vermont in 1950 and signed up for junior high education. The only college that had that particular aspect of education.
Okay.
And then I raised the 6 kids and got over to New York State and realized I still wanted that. So I got to teaching in a middle school. At first year, the middle school had developed in that particular school district. And I taught there till I was 65, and they're ready to get rid of me. No, I was still very busy with the Nordic ski program.
Okay.
I must confess, I had started with some little skis up there in Franklin in the yard around the parsonage. And then my folks took me to see a ski event in Linden. Oh! I ran a ski lodge down in Waitsfield for a few years for children. And then we moved to New York. And nobody was skiing in that area. And I thought, well, these little kids can ski. So I got a Nordic going.
Nice.
Fantastic. I spent my life, the rest of the life, other than teaching school and taking care of kids. I got a little 4th grade kid I was teaching that year to ski. We ended up going to the 92 Olympics in France, 94 in Norway. She became a top woman biathlete. Yep. And my kids all skied for us, went to college to ski. Oh dear. And now I have a grandson who came back from LA and working with SpaceX.
Okay.
And he lives in Shelburne. And he has 2 little kids.
Oh,
And he's helping with the Bill Coke skiing.
nice. Nice.
Your great-grandchildren are doing what you love. What more can you ask for with life? I worked 2002 at the Winter Olympics, and then 2006 I worked up in Alaska at the Arctic Olympics. So you see, inside, I'm not an old lady. Inside, I just like to think about skiing and camping.
Absolutely, that's your world. I want to back up to part of your world because you talked about living in the parsonage on Main Street.
Oh yes.
When you looked out at Franklin Village, what was it in that time period? Who'd you know? Where'd you go? What was interesting?
Oh, you knew everybody. And it was wonderful. Let me tell you, living in the parsonage was really fun. Because, you know, at that time, minister's office was in the parsonage.
Okay.
And people came in all the time. And people came in to talk serious. I know you couldn't think of living in I was all right. And then he'd come in to get married. Oh, that was fun. I was sent upstairs. I peeked down through the round stovepipe hole and watched. And guess what? I remember when a couple whose last name was Benjamin got married there. Oh, it is Franklin. This is the fun part. and then you would go over. You'd go over to the church, and the same people are sitting in some of those pews today. The families of the same pews I remember when I was growing up there.
Absolutely. And there were still some blacksmith shops at work in Franklin at that point?
Right down on the right-hand side. Yes. Oh, down the barber shop down on the left-hand side by the falls. They got changed over to the part of the candy store later. Yeah.
So you remember Phil Rainville's barber shop and ice cream parlor?
Oh my goodness, that's a little newer than some of the other things. Yes, I remember that. Oh my goodness, in fact I feel sorry now when I drive by and it's not. And I still have that as I go there. Isn't that funny that you should mention that? And I still like to, when I go into the phone building, I go to pay my bill because I like to go into the phone building.
Absolutely.
And in the back part is where Ruth Tooth was always looking on the phone. Lo and behold, this little Vermont granddaughter married a Tooth. And we call him Connor Tooth, the Prince of Franklin. It bothers him a little bit, but he doesn't care.
When did phone service come to Lake Carmine?
When did we get phone?
When did you get a telephone here at camp?
My mother got one probably. I don't remember. I think I was gone.
Okay.
There were a few years when I was gone.
Huey told us a lot of them went in after the war, and the party lines had as many as 10 families sharing a single phone.
Sure. Oh, sure. Because it was a surprise when they said I had to have my own line. I thought that's kind of boring.
Well, you knew your ring. You knew when it was your call. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You remember your ring?
No,
I wondered.
I didn't stay here around that much at that time.
Okay.
No, I was busy traveling with I spent all summer, every summer while my kids were growing up in a tent somewhere. You know, like whether you're going across the country or going to Alaska or going to sit over there at a lake in New York where people are going to summer school.
So if you had a young person in front of you who said, hey, I'm thinking about buying a camp, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say that this is the most beautiful lake you could possibly imagine. And if we're careful, we could even find a place to swim.
And that was kind of my last question is, who taught you to swim?
Nobody. My mother told me I could go as far out as the Black Rock.
Okay.
At that time, right now, it'd probably be right at the end of the dock or up a little bit. I always look for it. It's still there. And we had no dock. we had nothing. We just climbed over the rocks and got down. The only reason that dock is still there is, for some reason, my sons don't seem to think I should be climbing over the rocks anymore. And do you know that with this rain from the flood, going out, I'm going to go down the ladder, and I'm just going to go swimming a little bit. It's pretty clear. Holy smokes! The water was up to the next to the last step. And when I went down the lower part, the water was up to my chin. I held on tight and floated around, but I didn't go down to the bottom.
Absolutely. We had a lot of water in a little bit of time there. You have been a joy to visit with. Thank you so much.
It's so much fun.
Thank you. If you think of something in a couple days and say, hey, I've got another couple of stories, you give us a call, and we'll find our way back.
Well, I would like to come over to the museum, too, and in any way I can help.
That's the man to talk to right there.
Any way I can help. You see, I remember May Gates so very well.
Really?
May was my dearest friend.
Okay.
And I would go up there and visit, and she was such a happy person. And my folks would try to take me home, and I can remember hanging on to the leg of the table in the kitchen area, not wanting to leave Auntie May.
Wow.
And her granddaughter has the same personality. It's like May has come back again.
And Susie will be portraying May in the Spirits of Franklin
Wonderful.
later this month.
And when is it going to be?
We're going to be at the town hall on the 29th of July. I want to say 7 o'clock.
Oh, I got that listed on my calendar.
Yep.
We're opening the doors at 6:30. And
I'll be there.
Last time it was a standing room only crowd, so you want to be there early.
We're excited, but you knew Dick Wright, you knew Martha Toll, you knew May Gates, you knew Oscar, so I think you're going to have some fun.
Oh, I will be so happy to see all my old friends.
Well,
Thank you for telling me. And Susie,
and thank you for letting us visit you in your yard. It's been a delightful part of the afternoon.
I would like you to be, come on over, Tommy. This is my middle child.
Okay.
This is Tom Hayes
I'm a little
from
boy.
Harwood.
Nice to meet you. Oh, Hayes Ford, yes. Okay.
How you doing?
Nice. Well, we had a tip that your mom had wonderful stories,
Oh, she's got a few of them.
and I couldn't get my telephone to cooperate, and Dave said, well, pick me up, and we'll just drive over and see if she's home.
Of course, I'm Mom's. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
This has been, I think, the most pleasant location